So we're here with the president and CEO of Global Partners, Eric Slifka. And Eric, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time.
Good to be here, Paula.
And this is one of those really interesting Massachusetts cases because so much of the process that we don't appreciate goes on behind the scenes. People don't see it playing out. Your company was just denied a contract, and it's to redevelop all of the service plazas on the Mass Turnpike. Your bid, you say, was almost $1 billion more than another company, a foreign company from Ireland called Applegreen, which was awarded the contract. So this is the issue here, and this is not sitting well with you.
Right. So let me start by giving a little bit of history.
Mm-hmm.
So my grandfather started in the retail home heating oil business.
Right. You're a fourth generation Massachusetts company.
But in the 1930s,
mm-hmm.
it was a place called Slifka's Reliable Oil Burner Service. It was a storefront. My dad went into the business. I came into the business. Now my kids are in the business.
Mm-hmm.
And today we're a company that supplies and owns and operates 1,700 gas stations and convenience marketplaces. We have 54 terminals from Maine down to Florida and
mm-hmm.
into Texas as well. And we currently are supplying and distributing gasoline on the turnpike today.
Right. So just so people understand, you're not just like a little mom and pop, oh, this was my grandfather's company. It's a Fortune 500 company with
Right.
thousands of employees, multiple states.
1,700 employees in this state.
Mm-hmm.
Our offices are here in this state.
Mm-hmm.
They've been in this state since the 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And it is our home. You know, Massachusetts is our home, and it has been for 4 generations.
So as the process played out and your bid went in, how shocked were you to find out that this Irish company had won the contract?
I think what upset us the most was that they ended up going to Blackstone and a company called Applegreen. Applegreen is a company out of Ireland. Blackstone, as everybody knows, is a major investment company.
Mm-hmm.
And I was surprised because for 2 reasons. I was surprised that they would go with somebody outside that's not local, not just not local, but not in the U.S., right?
Mm-hmm.
So a foreign-based firm. And then on top of it, when MassDOT disclosed the bid pricing, we said, oh my God, they left $1 billion on the table.
Right.
And to me, $1 billion that could go to infrastructure, that could go to those in need, that could go to not having inflation for tolls on the Mass Pike.
Mm-hmm.
Here are all these things, and we're in a budget season.
Right, but we should say MassDOT, for its part, disputes your numbers and says that you were only about $125 million.
Yep.
So what's your response to that?
It's not 125, it's $1 billion. This is what I would say to MassDOT is, let's show the bids side by side and show how you scored the bid for both companies, and let's see actually where they felt like we were short,
right,
and how they awarded it. The reality is, we know how to operate those sites. We're there today. We have the capital. We're willing to put the guarantee of the company behind it, whereas they've accepted a special purpose entity as their investment for their operating of the tolls in the state here. So it's just,
A couple of things. So it sounds as though you're asking for transparency. Has the MassDOT board ever, published all of the bids on any other contracts that you know of? Or is this always a very secretive process?
I don't think it is quite as secretive as this particular process has been. I do think that the state should want to understand why we're saying it's $1 billion. Look, we're here because we're local, and we don't do this everywhere. I mean, this is our home state. We have terminals that supply these plaza centers as well. We're also in the fresh food business and with All Town Fresh, which we have throughout the state. We know how to do this, and basically we think that this is an injustice to the taxpayers of the state of Massachusetts.
Now, Governor Healy has said nothing untoward went on as far as she could see in the process. She said the board just decided this company was better equipped than yours, I guess, to handle it. What about, it's just so, it starts to get really into the weeds of your business, that it looked as though they would have more capital investment up front, even though the back end was different. But at the end of the day, you're saying it is odd to you that a Massachusetts company would get passed over for a foreign concern.
Well, let's talk about some of the things that you mentioned there. Our rent is guaranteed. Their rent is not guaranteed. On the low end of their rent, that is how we get to the $1 billion. So ours is firm, hard, and fast. The state will get that money. They won't get that money with the Applegreen bid, right? On the capital expenditure, once again, not firm. It's not guaranteed. You actually have to negotiate with MassDOT on what those expenditures are going to be as you go and you permit and you decide what you can design and build. So to me, we stepped up to the plate, made a very firm commitment, and the company that they ended up going with did not have a firm commitment. And so there's risk there for the state, and that's a problem. And so we think this should be investigated. We think it should be looked into. We've reached out to the governor. We've reached out to the attorney general,
and
the
what's their
investigator
response
general,
to you?
and they're looking into it. I think the AG is going to maybe push it a little bit. I am hopeful that that's what happens. There's an opportunity here. The bottom line is to represent the people of the state and make sure that we're representing them in the best way possible. $1 billion is a lot of money. I can't believe I'm here having a conversation to say, I'm trying to give you $1 billion, take it.
Right.
And one more piece here that's very interesting is, think of it this way. By giving this contract to Applegreen and Blackstone, they're giving $1 billion away to those two companies. That money's not going to stay in the state. That money's not going to get invested
Of taxpayer
in the state.
money.
Of taxpayers' money. Whereas if I'm here and I'm making money in this state, I'm already there. I'm making all the investments. I'm investing in charitable causes. I am local. I am investing in the towns. We have stations and stores all over the state.
You are already operating on the Mass Turnpike.
Yes.
This is a predominantly one-party state. Do you think this is part of the issue here, part of the problem here?
Look, I think MassDOT did a terrible job here, and they need to step up, and they need to let a little antiseptic and sun show exactly what the bids are, compare them, and put it in the public view. They haven't shown us every bid either, and they've only showed us select things. They have not shown, in the RFP, they have 5 weightings. They haven't shown us how they made those weightings.
Is this a done deal?
It is not a done deal. There's still an opportunity. So what I would suggest to everybody who is listening, this is a travesty. So hopefully people will go online to www.globalp.com, and there is click on the red banner and write a letter to your state rep and Congress people.
And we'll certainly be talking to the governor, the attorney general, the MassDOT.
And you can write letters to them too there online, right? So it's important to get involved because the state, needs this money, right? Wouldn't it be great if the state had an extra $1 billion in their budget for this year that they're negotiating? Very
interesting to, we know this will continue.
Yep.
This is not over. All right, so thanks so much, Eric Slifka.
Thank you very much.
President and CEO of Global Partners, and to be continued. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're joined now by Bob Etchingham, who is the co-founder of Applegreen, and we are continuing our conversation about the Mass Pike Service Plaza contract, which was awarded to Applegreen by MassDOT. That is being challenged by the Waltham-based bidder Global Partners, which is one of the other bidders in the process. That company claims that the process wasn't transparent enough and that they have a better bid than Applegreen. So, Bob, we appreciate you joining us. Thanks so much for weighing in. First of all, tell us about Applegreen's bid, why you think it was so successful, and why it was better than any of the other companies in the process.
Okay, Paula, thank you for that. I just want to say as well how excited we are to be able to bring what will be world-class travel facilities to the Massachusetts public, especially as we're now heading into a holiday weekend. Many people will be visiting travel plazas, and we'll be able to in 3 years' time, we'll be able to offer you something that's vastly superior to what you experience at the moment. Applegreen is a business that focuses pretty much exclusively on travel plazas. If you look at the revenue, 95% of our revenue is from food and beverage and from C-store sales. Other people in the bid, nobody else can say that. I think you mentioned Global there, the underbidder. I think their figure is 3% of their revenue comes from food and beverage. So, you know, we're very much the most experienced and the best qualified to operate the new travel plazas, and we're looking forward to doing that.
Sure. So you operate the interstates in New York, right? How many other states in the United States?
We operate travel plazas on a total of 9 states, and we have 113 travel plazas at this moment in the northeast of the US.
All right. So let's just dive into the numbers. As you know, many of our viewers not deeply knowledgeable about your industry and not involved in the entire process. So they're hearing lots of numbers being thrown around. Let me just give some of them to you. Global Partners contends that their bid was almost $1 billion more, that it was guaranteed upfront money to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and it was more than your winning bid. That I should say, the state has said MassDOT disputes that figure and says it was only about $125 million more. So what's your answer to that claim?
I think the numbers being put forward by the underbidder, they were described at the recent MassDOT board meeting as unreliable. That's what the evaluation committee said about them. And, you know, whilst I'm not privy...
that the company was unreliable or those figures were unreliable?
Those figures were unreliable.
Okay.
I'm not privy to the numbers that they put in as part of their bid. But suffice it to say that our bid was approved by the MassDOT board 7-0. With one abstention. So the board clearly viewed our bid as being superior. It's important to realise that right at the beginning of this lengthy process, it went on for about 18 months, the candidates were given the 6 criteria that MassDOT viewed as being very important to them with these new plazas. Financial obviously was one of those. It was the main one, but there were 5 others. And you know, the scoring that was allocated to the submission for each of those 6 areas was added together, and you know, presumably our bid was the highest and the best of all those received.
Right. So, you know, it's interesting that you talk about those 6 criteria. I guess one of their accusations by the CEO of Global Partners is that for residents here in Massachusetts, the entire process wasn't transparent enough. But of course, those answers lie with our state leaders here. For your part, there were other factors that weighed in. One of them was that you cite your bid was not based on fossil fuel sales, and that you believe that was the case with the Global Partners bid. Is that right?
Yeah, that's part of it. That explains part of the difference. If you look at our bid, we assume that there would be a decline in fossil fuel sales across the period right up to 2016 or 2060, I should say. And they assume that there would be growth. We are assuming that we're going to committing to putting in 750 charging bays on the 18 plazas during that term.
So it's a larger upfront capital investment?
Yeah, it is. Indeed, it is. And you know, you also have to take into account the time value of money. $1 today is worth a lot more than $1 in 20 years' time. So,
and this is a 35-year lease.
This 35-year concession term, yeah. And you know, MassDOT, as I understand it, brought KPMG, the accountancy firm, in to help them with the evaluation of the bids, and they would have, you know, taken all those factors into account when they were scoring it, and that's That's why the gap between us and Global is much smaller than they are, you know, purporting.
Than they're claiming. You can imagine a lot of residents of Massachusetts might think, well, geez, this is a massive contract, 35 years long, billions of dollars. Why on earth would the Commonwealth give a contract to a foreign company based in Ireland and not a 4th generation Massachusetts company? But one of the factors in your process is that you're going to be using a well-known local company, Suffolk Construction. Is that right?
Correct.
To
That's
help you
correct.
build
Yeah.
all the plazas? Do you think that was part of utilizing a Massachusetts firm to sweeten your bid?
I think it was part of the reason, but we've been working with Suffolk now for well over a year, and our plans are very well developed, and we're ready to hit the ground running now on the 1st of January. At the end of the day, as I said, this is what we do. We are a travel plaza company. 95% of our revenue in the US comes from food and beverage and C-store sales. Only 3% of Global's revenue comes from those areas. So we are very much the food and beverage people, the most experienced, the best qualified, and I suspect that's why we were appointed by the board of MassDOT.
And as I understand it, your design process involves special, what's the word I'm looking for? Designing plazas based on the part of Massachusetts where they're located.
That's right. Yes, you can see.
So they'd be more coastal on Cape Cod, as
correct.
you get closer
Yeah,
to the coast. They'd be more, rural as they were in Central Mass and so on.
There's 3 formats that we've designed. One of which is in the western area in the Berkshires, one of which is in the metro around Boston, and the third format is for the coastal, we call it, for the area down to Cape Cod. You can see those on applegreen.com. You can get a much better picture of the plans and the images there. So if you're interested, that's the place to go.
Yeah. So what's your message? The CEO of Global Partners is saying this is not a done deal yet. Do you think it's a done deal?
Well, look, we're working hard to get everything ready for the transition on the 1st of January coming. We've signed the transition agreement with the authority. We have set up the various work streams, and we're getting on with it now. And we hope to have a smooth transition come the end of this year.
So just in general, to someone who might see this story or read about it and think it just bothers them that the Massachusetts company didn't win the bid. What's your message to them? Because this is such a complex process.
Yeah, I think it's horses for courses. We are the travel plaza experts. We're at this for over 30 years. We're actually a US company now. We're owned by Blackstone, a majority owned by them. The founders are still involved in the business, still active in the business, and have a shareholding in the business. But we are, to all intents and purposes, a US company, and able to deliver for the people of Massachusetts.
Right. I do know some of your plazas in New York State Thruway faced some delays. And what issues did you run into there? Because New York is a different kettle of fish than Massachusetts.
We went on site there during COVID, and as you may be aware, in the wake of COVID, there was a huge increase in material costs. That didn't concern us in the sense that we had a fixed price lump sum contract with our general contractor. The state did pass some legislation, which was never signed into law, to provide relief for contractors who were involved in state projects. I believe that our general contractor did make some inquiries about getting relief, but as I understand it, he was not successful.
Didn't in the end.
That's as far as it goes. We were not involved and didn't participate, and certainly weren't looking for a bailout, as has been represented by people.
Yeah. All right. And in terms of transparency, we'll certainly be talking to the governor and representatives from MassDOT about that. But thanks for answering all our questions, Bob, and joining us from London. We really appreciate all of your input. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Paula.